Thank you for joining me for Cam Church. Today we are talking about the fundamentals of Unicult yet again. If you want to get your own copy, you can do so on Unicult Supply Co. Today we're talking about experiencing the universe. And I'm actually going to update this chapter. So if you have the book and you've studied it, you're getting exclusive information from me today, which is not in the book. And that's okay. Because we're always growing, we're always adapting, and we're always adding new information to these concepts. So I just realized there's one GIF I want to show you about this sermon, if I can find it easily. Unbelievable that I don't have it saved here. It's okay, maybe I can find it on Google. It's a sphere 2D, 3D. Let's try that. Images. Oh, we want a GIF. Okay, sorry, I forgot that. I was thinking about this before bed last night, and I was like, I need to make sure that I have that GIF ready to go. But I forgot. Here it is, found it. Okay, I'm gonna save it to my computer because it's one of my favorite GIFs in the whole world, and this GIF is gonna blow your mind. It's worth waiting for, honestly, because this GIF is pretty extraordinary in the sense that it will help illustrate my point. It really will. And there's a lot of, like, when we get into dimensional reality, that's like something that that we definitely go hard on with dimensional reality, with diagrams and drawings. This won't be that hard to understand. But we're talking today about experiencing the universe. And when we talk about experiencing the universe, we're talking about our understanding of life itself. Something that is really wild to me, something that really blows my frickin' noggin, like blows my brain out every time I think about it, is the fact that people say that feelings don't matter, that only facts matter. And a lot of people believe this. And this is actually a really overt, horrible brainwash that we have been erasing our own understanding of the world from the world. So think about if you've ever been told, like, well, it doesn't matter what you feel, here's the facts. It doesn't matter if you know, what your experience is. The reality is this and this and this. And sometimes that's important to do. You know, it's like, I feel like I can fly. Well, hey, there's a cliff there. You know, if there's going to be danger involved, that's something to think about. But if you are talking about something that is your experience, you say, I saw a ghost, or I feel a higher power, or I feel like I am telepathic. A lot of times, even in those cases, or this technology, I can feel the effects of this technology. That's the point where I think it's the most obvious. And I use this example often, so forgive me for using it again, but it's very important that we understand this distinction. If I can feel the energy coming off my cell phone, and I can feel Bluetooth headphones and they give me a headache, or I can feel the energy coming off my Wi-Fi router, and someone says, that's not real, those aren't the facts, how can you tell someone that their experience isn't a fact? How can you tell someone that what they are experiencing isn't real? It doesn't make any sense. So we have completely diverted our own internal compass of our own understanding of life, and we've put our trust into the third dimensional validated reality. And that's what this chapter is talking about in Fundamentals of Unicult, experiencing the universe. So we are humans. We are under immense, massive consciousness control on this planet. This is otherwise known as the veil. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just think about the ways in which you are expected to act and behave. Think about the ways that your expectations of gender, the things that your parents taught you. You can think about it like if a baby was born and you didn't give them any restrictions or language, how would they navigate the world? What would they experience? It would be very different. Language itself is a restrictor and a definer of our reality. So there's a lot of ways that we experience the universe, which our parents precondition us. And our parents actually, through coming, I've been thinking about this a lot, through coming through the vehicle of a physical body, you're taking on the energy and the understanding of that body. So you're getting, for 9 months in the womb, you get prepared energetically. Okay, wow, here's a wave of anger. Here's a wave of fear. Okay, so you're in that emotional body. And so you prepare yourself that way, and then you're born and you have to make sense of all the sensory stuff. And it takes several years for your parents to explain, this is the color red. This is a circle, you know, and then you learn language and you learn context and you learn what to expect of the world. It's more than language, but that's just a good place to understand that the way that we're taught about the world is a lens from which we filter through an incredible amount of information. The truth is that we have many other senses which are not given credence. They're not given precedence, they're not taught, and they're actually shamed, and they're actually shut out of our reality. So when you have the experience of having an imaginary friend, let's say, or you have the experience of seeing a ghost, or you have the experience of communicating telepathically with a higher entity, then your family will say, well, that's not real. And you learn to focus your attention on something that is real. There was a philosopher named Gestalt, and he came up with this understanding of reality, which is that there's too much stimuli, even in the third dimensional reality. There's too much stimuli for us to focus on any one particular thing. So I'll show you guys an image here that represents what I'm talking about. I really enjoy learning about Gestalt and this idea because sorry, I'm pushing the wrong buttons. Okay, it's locked. If you're on Instagram, you should go on YouTube. Okay, so this idea is that our minds make up a story of what is happening here, even though the information isn't actually there. If you look at this bottom left one, you've got all you have is circles with white parts cut out of them. You don't actually have a cube, but our brains make up the fact that there's a cube there. And if you look at this one in the top middle, there's not really a white triangle there, and there's not even a black triangle. There's just pointy lines like this, right? And then little Pac-Man, and those other shapes give the understanding that the white triangle is there and that the black triangle is there. So this idea of having too many stimuli in your third dimensional reality to make sense of it and to piece it together and to just make judgments and assumptions about the world, which is part of why we have judgments and assumptions about race and about different types of people and generalizations. They help us survive because our consciousness isn't prepared to understand and deal with mass amounts of information. Most people would say our consciousness can't understand mass amounts of information, can't process it, but I would argue that it's actually just our language that's limiting our ability to create and let information flow through us in a maximum rate. Not that language should be eradicated by any means, but when we shape our consciousness around language, we are limited. That's why people who speak a lot of languages, they're actually usually very intelligent because they actually can see the world in a larger framework than people who only speak one language. People who, it's not always true, but sometimes people with larger vocabularies have a better understanding for context of the world because they have more ways to try to conceptualize of and understand reality. So where's the point of Unicult? Where does Unicult come in? Unicult believes that all things are consciousness. So we're in a sea of energy that is imbued with conscious energy, and you can think whatever you want. I'm offering these ideas to you, as always, for you to consider and to feel through your own consciousness and see if it benefits you. If it benefits you, then take it on as belief. If it doesn't, a lot of these things can't be proven or disproven, but I'm here to tell you that these ways of thinking will improve your life. If you at least consider them and make up your own mind about them, your life will be greatly improved because your consciousness is going to expand to incorporate other realities. So we are third dimensional beings trapped on Earth, trapped in time. And my understanding of time is really what led me to this understanding. A lot of scientists say that time is the fourth dimension, and we won't get too deep into the fourth dimension. We won't get into dimensions, but I want you to start to understand how we put our glorification onto third dimensional reality. We say physical reality is the only reality that matters. We say facts matter, feelings don't. We have all these conceptions of it. So let's start with time. We are third dimensional beings. If you know about the spatial dimensions, we've got the first dimension, which is a dot, the second dimension is a plane, and the third dimension is the next axis up. So our bodies are three-dimensional. A piece of paper, the writing on the piece of paper, second dimension, okay? So when we talk about how a third dimensional sphere looks to the second dimension, we're talking about a 3D object passing through a flat sphere, like a flat plane, like a piece of paper. So this concept comes from Flatland. It's a book from the, I think, early 1900s, late 1800s. And this is what it looks like. So the way that they describe it in Flatland is that there are beings. There are second dimensional beings and there are third dimensional beings. So the second dimensional beings are like basically words, lines, shapes. They just live on the surface of the plane. The third dimensional being is a sphere. And this sphere, if it tries to interact with the second dimensional plane of existence, how will the second dimensional creatures understand it? They will understand it not as a sphere because their reality isn't expansive enough. They don't have the third dimension to understand the sphere fully. They are going to understand the sphere in the only way that they can understand it, which is a little pinpoint as the sphere goes through. If you're on Instagram, you're missing the graphic here, as a pinpoint, and then a circle as it goes through. It turns into a circle because all it can identify is the perimeter of that sphere, and then it goes through and it shrinks into a pinpoint again. So the second dimensional beings would understand that something happened. The second dimensional beings would understand they were feeling something, but they wouldn't understand the larger picture of the sphere. Why is this important? This is important because we are third dimensional beings. What is time? Time is the fourth dimension. So how are we experiencing time? Can we, since we're not fourth dimensional entities, how can we experience time in its fullest extent? We can't. We can only experience time from our ability to understand it. So it's this idea that we're trapped in time. And when you start to realize we're not able to comprehend the larger aspect of time, we're not able to see time as its entire energy. If we were at a higher vibration or a higher dimensional reality, we would then be outside of time. We would then be we would be in the same reality as time, just like we are third dimensional beings, so we can experience a sphere. But if we were second dimensional beings, we couldn't. So those ideas start to open up our mind to understand how many realities are there which we are only simply barely tapping into. How many realities are there which we are getting glimpses of higher dimensional realities? We can feel that something is happening, but we don't necessarily understand it in its fullest sense because we're not ready to be that higher dimensional being. In Unicult, we believe that every single person can use their own consciousness to comprehend as fully as possible the interdimensional nature of the universe. And we're new to this as humans because, like I said, for 100, 200 years, however long, we have glorified physical reality as fact, and we have shunned and eradicated our subtle emotional states. Emotions are an indicator of higher dimensional realities. Emotions are indicators that you are feeling and experiencing another dimensional reality that is happening to you, that you're only experiencing it in an embodied sense. The idea that we are all one, the idea that we're all connected, isn't really clear down here on Earth, and we end up embodying universal energies in our own singular experiences. It's kind of cool, it's kind of beautiful, because we get lots of unique energy. But if you're feeling lost and confused, you're not the only person who's ever felt lost or confused. That's a universal energy. But on Earth, you're alone in experiencing it at that moment in time. But when you look at it from a higher perspective, you're tuning into a larger dimensional reality of a lot of people feeling lost and confused, and you're feeling that universal energy come through you. And you're a channeler of that universal energy. You can do this with negative emotions, you can do it with higher emotions, you can do it with divinity itself. Divinity itself is the highest possible dimensional reality. Divinity itself is something that is experienced by every single dimensional reality. And that's what I believe. I believe all dimensions can theoretically interact with one another because the spirit of uni exists. The spirit of uni is that which unifies all dimensions. The spirit of uni is the thing that makes the system the system. If there is one thing that is the same throughout the whole system, then it's a system. You have to have at least one unifier that goes through the entire system. And that one unifier is the way that each dimension interacts with each other. That is the spirit of uni, or how we experience it is love. So when we're talking about experiencing the universe, we're talking about trusting your internal compass, trusting your internal guidance, and looking into the possibilities of what could potentially be true, what could potentially be real, and giving credence and homage to your subtle emotional realities, and recognizing that scientists understand that there are infinite dimensional realities. If you want to read a good book on this topic, check out Warped Passages by Lisa Randall. That's a great book to start. She opens it, she doesn't connect it to emotional reality, sure, that's Unicult, but she is bringing up the fact that there are infinite dimensions, some of them infinitesimally small, some of them mind-blowingly large. There's dimensions that are curled up. There's dimensions that are within other dimensions. There's dimensions that you can only access if you're in another dimension, and you can access that dimension. There are infinite dimension realities. And in Unicult, we unify the New Age understanding of higher dimensional consciousness and the physical reality dimension understandings of spatial dimensions. The way that we'll go over it quickly. The way that science understands spatial dimensional reality is a point, a plane, a 3D, and then you expand from there to 4D, you get another plane of existence. But we can't really comprehend spatial dimensions above that. That's because there aren't spatial dimensions above that. The spatial dimensions, I think, can go up to 9. But then infinitely there are, emotions are dimensional reality. Emotions are the fundamental aspect of dimension. Even in 3D Earth, it's emotional energy, it's conscious energy in the third dimension. We don't realize it. So the way that the consciousness perceives the energy forms, and the way that the energy forms are conglomerated, when you know that everything is energy, right? Like when you look at an atom and you look closer and you look at the quark and you get into you can't find actual anything. It's all energy. So how that energy is understood, how it's organized, that is the dimensional understanding. There's something called quasi-crystals. It's used on nonstick pans. It's a 5th dimensional crystal. And they only know that because they're like, this is a crystalline pattern, but it only makes sense from the 5th spatial dimension. So start to understand these things. Start to just open your mind up to these things, because what I'm trying to give you a standing point is, if you're a rational person and you believe in science and you believe in physical reality and you want to be smart and you want to look at this logically, here's your in. Okay, the body is aware of all the energy that's in this world. The body and the mind are aware of and able to perceive the full spectrum of the electromagnetic spectrum. That's our God-given right. That's our uni-given right. That is, we have that ability. Is that going to be accessible to you instantly? Are you going to be able to understand how to see with those new eyes when you first open them? Not necessarily. It takes training, it takes understanding. Just because you can sense it doesn't mean that you can make sense of it. So when you're in this reality and you're reaching for something higher, or you're trying to understand, or you're trying to feel, what is telepathy? What are my emotions? How am I an energy being in a sea of energy? How can I possibly communicate with extraterrestrials? How can I believe more than what is being told to me? Understand these ways that your consciousness has been confined and corralled into a way that helps you communicate with other people and helps you not go crazy. But also understand that there are infinite possibilities for experiencing the universe. And the universe flows through you in the sense that your energy, your subtle energy body, and what I mean by that is if you feel someone looking at you and you turn around and you know they're looking at you, or you know someone's thinking a certain thing. These kinds of things happen to me all the time because I'm very in tune with my subtle energy body. But you already have the information coming into your human computer. You do feel when someone's looking at you. You do feel someone's thoughts. You just don't know how to make sense of it yet. You can already see and sense all of these things. It's just about tuning into it and not letting fear and doubt and shame from your parents and from the world get in the way of your ability to distinguish these higher dimensional realities. So the point of tuning into the universe is to reach a higher state of joy. And it's to get connected with a higher state of consciousness. It's to get in connection with a higher state of understanding that is beneficial to you. And to see the world, and really ultimately, and next week we're going to be talking about consciousness. And it's to see the world in this conscious way. It's to see that there's no such thing as an inanimate object, to see that there is only consciousness all around us. And the benefits of that are extraordinary. When you see the world as a reflection of your own consciousness and a connection to a higher consciousness, you treat all things with respect. You treat your fellow humans with respect. You treat your fellow animals with respect. You treat rocks with respect. And that respect is felt in your body. We talked recently about forgiveness and holding on to anger, holding on to grudges. The energy that you cultivate in your body about the world around you is what changes your amount of joy.